The air in the Somme Valley is thick, heavy with the damp of churned earth and the metallic tang of cordite that clings to the back of the throat. Kneeling in the freezing slush, you adjust the brass knobs of your Thornton Pickard camera. Your fingers are permanently stained a deep bruised purple by the developer fluid, a mark of your trade that no amount of scrubbing can remove. As an official photographer for the British Press Bureau, your satchel holds glass plates that feel heavy and fragile, each one a potential window into a world the public is desperate to see. You believe in your mission with a fervor that borders on religious, to show families back home that the empire is organized, brave, and winning. The sun bleeds over the horizon, casting long, distorted shadows across the cratered landscape. You check the shutter mechanism preparing to document history, unaware that you are curating a lie to mask the agonizing cost of the morning. You're not merely recording events, you are constructing a narrative of inevitable victory, a task that requires you to ignore the visceral reality of the mud and the screams. This curated reality serves a vital function for the state. It keeps the home front compliant, ensuring that the flow of recruits and capital remains uninterrupted by the reality of the front. By sanitizing the war, you are effectively turning it into a manageable, heroic abstraction for those who will never have to smell the rot. The whistle blows, a piercing sound that should signal the start of an advance, but it is swallowed by the roar of the artillery barrage. Your heavy wooden tripod and the long exposure times required by your equipment are ill-suited for the chaotic energy of a bayonet charge. Men vanish into the swirling gray smoke before your shutter can even begin to click. You are forced to retreat, your equipment cumbersome in the deep sucking mud. Ordered to pull back to the safety of the reserve trenches, you find men huddled in the dark, waiting for their turn to face the fighting. You arrange them like actors on a stage, telling them to look resolute, brushing the wet grime from their uniforms to make them appear presentable for the lens. The Press Bureau demands order, symmetry, and stoicism, not the hollow-eyed, trembling reality of the front line. You comply, telling yourself these images are necessary to maintain morale, that a nation cannot survive if it sees its sons broken. You are building a myth, a grand tapestry of heroism, while the real war, the war of dismemberment and terror, happens just miles away, hidden from the public. This deliberate staging creates a disconnect. The viewer at home sees a clean, orderly struggle, which in turn fuels a demand for more of the same, trapping the soldiers in a cycle of performative bravery that ignores their actual desperate needs. By the third day, the official narrative begins to crumble under the weight of the mounting casualties. You wander into an abandoned sector, a place where the air is thick with the scent of blood and freshly turned earth. You step over bodies tangled in the rusted, jagged teeth of barbed wire, not posed for a portrait, but twisted in their final moments of life. The slaughter defies comprehension. It is a landscape of broken limbs and shattered dreams. Instinct overrides your sense of duty to the Bureau. You frame the carnage, adjusting the aperture to capture the truth of the devastation. You capture the way a hand reaches out from the mud, the way a helmet lies discarded in a pool of dark, stagnant water. This is the truth, raw and unvarnished, a testament to the industrial scale of the killing. You feel a strange, cold clarity as you click the shutter, knowing that this image is the only thing that matters, even if it is destined to be buried. By documenting the grotesque, you are acknowledging the humanity of the fallen, refusing to let their deaths be reduced to mere statistics in a government report. This act of defiance is your only way to reconcile the dissonance between the propaganda you produce and the reality you witness. Back in the cramped, chemical-smelling darkroom, the censor inspects your plates with a detached eye. He marks your truth with a sharp, red X and orders it destroyed, his face impassive as he tosses the glass into a bin. You watch the glass shatter, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the small room, but you have already hidden a duplicate negative in the lining of your satchel. You are a thief of your own work, guarding a secret that could cost you your commission, your reputation, or even your life. You realize then that the war is being fought not just with rifles and shells, but with the control of perception. Every time you hide a negative, you are reclaiming a piece of the reality that the state seeks to erase. You are a silent witness, a ghost in the machine of propaganda, carrying the weight of the dead in your satchel. This internal conflict creates a profound psychological burden. You are living two lives, one as a cog in the state's machinery and another as a clandestine historian of the carnage. The censor's indifference to the destruction of these plates highlights the efficiency of the state's narrative control, a mechanism designed to ensure that only the correct version of history survives the war. Months pass in a blur of gray skies and repetitive labor. You continue to take approved photos of smiling soldiers sharing cigarettes and supply trucks rolling through pristine villages, but your satchel grows heavy with the hidden negatives of the dead. You are a silent witness to a reality the world refuses to acknowledge. A secret keeper in a land of patriotic lies. You see newspapers filled with headlines of glorious advances and feel a quiet guilt that gnaws at your conscience. You stop looking at the soldiers as men, treating them instead as geometry and light, as shapes to be arranged for the perfect composition. The camera has become a burden, an anchor that ties you to a reality you are forbidden to share with the people who need to see it most. You begin to dream of the faces you have hidden, the eyes that stare back at you from the darkroom trays, demanding to be seen. This detachment is a survival mechanism, a way to shield your mind from the horror, but it only deepens the sense of alienation you feel from the society you are serving. The more you distance yourself from the humanity of the subjects, the more you realize that your work is fundamentally dehumanizing, stripping the soldiers of their individuality to serve a broader, colder purpose. The war ends in a hollow, ringing silence that feels more like a defeat than a victory. You return to London, but the city feels like a stage set of painted cardboard, a fragile facade that could collapse at any moment. You realize the public does not want the truth. They want the comfort of the lie, the reassurance that their sacrifice was not in vain. You take the hidden negatives to the river, the water dark and swirling with the debris of the city, and drop them into the depths. The ripples swallow the only evidence of what you saw, and the silence becomes yours to keep, a heavy, suffocating shroud that you will wear for the rest of your life. You watch the water flow, thinking of the men who will never return, their stories erased by your own hand. By destroying the evidence, you are complicit in the final act of the war's propaganda, the erasure of the trauma that might have prevented future conflicts. You are choosing the peace of the grave over the pain of the truth, a decision that will haunt your remaining years as you witness a society that has learned nothing from the slaughter. Decades later, you sit in a room smelling of dust and old paper, the sunlight filtering through the curtains in thin golden shafts. A single, unexposed glass plate rests on your desk, a blank slate that reflects your own tired, aged face. You no longer need the camera. The images are etched into your mind with a permanence that no developer fluid could ever achieve. You understand now that your duty was not to the Bureau, but to the men whose faces you erased for a heroic print. You were a witness who chose to be a ghost, a man who traded his integrity for the safety of a lie. History is not what happened, but what we choose to remember, and you have spent your life curating a memory that is fundamentally hollow. You pick up the glass plate, feeling its fragile, cool surface, and finally let the memory go, releasing the tension that has held you captive for so long. The truth remains buried in the dark, waiting for someone else to find it, someone who will not be afraid to look at the shadows. You close your eyes, and for the first time in years, the silence is not a burden, but a release. You are finally free of the images, free of the guilt, and free of the war that never truly ended for those who saw it. The world moves on, indifferent to the secrets you kept, but you know that somewhere, in the dark, the truth is still waiting to be unearthed by a generation that might finally be brave enough to look. This realization is your final act of penance, a recognition that, while you failed to preserve the truth in your time, the potential for future discovery remains, a flickering light in the vast, dark history of the conflict.